The government will use its health insurance fund worth some $141 million per month to fill in the gap caused by the mass resignation of doctors. Nurses will be allowed to perform CPR in emergent cases. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un calls for strengthened war preparations as he visited a Kim military base. This comes at a time when the South Korea-US annual military drills are taking place. Visiting the sea and airport transportation hub of Incheon today, President Yoon vows to bring the city closer to the capital through a new rail line GTX-B for the convenience of commuters. It's March 7th, 2024. This is Newscenter. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. The shortage of medical personnel due to the mass resignation by trainee doctors is beginning to have a larger effect on healthcare, possibly over the long term. To tackle this, the government is allocating funds worth over $140 million per month. The role of nurses will be expanded starting tomorrow. Shin Ha-young begins our coverage.
The government announced additional measures on Thursday to tackle the ongoing shortage of hospital physicians as thousands of junior doctors have continued to refuse to return to work. As part of these, 188 billion Korean won or around $141 million will be allocated monthly in extra spending on healthcare using money from the state health insurance fund.
The government will establish funding to support enhanced coverage of the hospitalization of severely ill patients and provide extra compensation to doctors who care for patients in intensive care units.
This follows the announcement the previous day of $96 million in contingency funding to ensure that emergency care and essential services remain in operation. To further address the disruptions of medical services, the Health Ministry released guidelines on Thursday that will expand the role of nurses. Starting Friday, they will be allowed to perform certain emergency procedures that they have been trained for without the supervision of doctors who would normally order them. Regarding this, the Korean Medical Association voiced opposition to the measure, expressing concerns that it could result in legal malpractice suits from patients who had undergone illegal medical practices at medical sites. During a meeting of the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure headquarters on the same day, the Interior Ministry said it would push for the enactment of a law to ease the burden on doctors and other medical staff facing such medical lawsuits from patients. Meanwhile, according to the Health Ministry, as of 11 a.m. on Wednesday, more than 90% of resident doctors from 100 major hospitals, over 11,000, were still absent from their posts nationwide. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
The city of Incheon, where the nation's main international airport is located, will soon be reachable within just half an hour from Seoul by train. This comes as President Yoon Suk-yeol visited the city today to meet citizens. Kim Do-yeon has the details.
President Yoon Suk-yeol has pledged efforts to enhance Incheon City's connectivity with a new rail line, the GTX-B, in 2030 to reduce commute time to and from the capital to just 30 minutes. The president was speaking while in Incheon for a policy discussion with citizens on Thursday on how to develop the seaport and airport city further.
예전에 서울과 인천을 통학하는 학생과 직장인들이 오랜 시간 지하철을 타면서 영어 단어도 외우고 공부도 했는데 이제 그런 공부할 수 있는 시대는 지나갈 것입니다. 노래 한두 곡 들으시면 바로 서울입니다.
He added the city will become better connected, making cities such as Busan in the southeast and Mokpo in the southwest reachable by train in around 2 hours. He also shared his vision of creating landmark attractions in Incheon to utilize its advantage as a gateway to and from Korea. Specifically, he spoke on fully automating Incheon Port's Piers 1 and 2 to create an internationally competitive logistics port. The surrounding land, around 3 square kilometers, will host resorts, shopping malls, and cultural spaces to attract tourists, a project named Incheon Golden Harbor. And President Yoon added that it's important to preserve the characteristics of each region when developing them.
구도심의 그 개발과 복원이라고 하는 것은 단순히 구도심이 너무 낙후되고 노후화됐기 때문에 발전시키자라는 그런 하드웨어적인 측면뿐만이 아니라 그 도시의 역사와 정체성을 살려주는 것이고.
Also, according to the president, Incheon International Airport will become the third global mega hub airport in the world capable of handling 100 million international passengers when its current expansion finishes in October. He also assures citizens that the merger between South Korea's two main airlines, Korean Air and Asiana, will not negatively affect consumers, especially in terms of the mileage system. After the event, to re-emphasize the GTX B-line's significance, Yoon joined the groundbreaking ceremony in Songdo.
GTX가 인천의 교통지도는 물론 산업지도, 생활지도, 문화지도까지 혁명적으로 바꿀 것입니다. 저와 우리 정부는 GTX B 건설 과정을 차근차근 꼼꼼하게 살피겠습니다.
President Yoon has in fact been emphasizing the role of intercity connections to increase convenience and productivity across the country. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, during his recent visit to a military base, called for strengthened preparations for war in an apparent move to counter the ongoing combined military drills by South Korea and the U.S. In response, Seoul's defense minister warned that the South will immediately punish the North if it uses this as an opportunity to engage in provocations. Choi Min-jung has this report.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is seen taking a shooting position with a rifle. On Wednesday, he visited a key military base and called for strengthened preparations for war. The regime's Korean Central News Agency on Thursday reported that Kim ordered for practical, actual war training to be intensified. Kim underlined that this would allow the regime to suppress enemies with overwhelming force and contain the slightest attempt to start a war. The visit comes 2 days after South Korea and the U.S. launched their Freedom Shield military exercise to strengthen deterrence against North Korea. An expert says Kim's remarks comes in an apparent move to counter the allies' drill.
It appears that Kim's remarks were in a way intended to counter the Seoul-Washington military exercise. Internally, Kim encouraged the military and the soldiers pledged their loyalty to their leader.
During an inspection of the Freedom Shield exercise on Thursday, Seoul's Defense Minister Shin Won-sik dismissed Kim's remarks and ordered the military to prepare to destroy the regime in the shortest possible time if it attempts to invade the South. The minister also warned that South Korea would immediately punish the North if it used the drills as an excuse to provoke. North Korea has often fired missiles in a show of protest against Seoul and Washington's military exercises. Meanwhile, Seoul's defense ministry on Thursday called Kim's remarks illogical.
It's North Korea that's directly violating UN Security Council resolutions and escalating nuclear and missile threats on the Korean Peninsula while attempting to wage war. We believe the North is the one who's done the wrong in being absurd.
The ministry once again reiterated that the combined exercise annually conducted by South Korea and the U.S. is defensive in nature. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
This week, the nation's biggest battery and electric vehicle exhibitions kicked off, attracting hundreds of global companies with their newest products. With this, we take a look at the battery industry this evening, which has been spurred on by rising global EV sales, but growth has begun to slow. Our business correspondent Moon Hae-ryun joins me in the studio to discuss how domestic firms are keeping the industry afloat. Welcome, Hae-ryun.
Good evening, Jung-min.
Evening. So what's the latest in the battery industry?
Well, as you mentioned, the EV market has been experiencing stunted growth and the battery market could be following suit. Recent data has shown that EV sales grew by just over 30% in 2023, which is half of that seen the year before. So I want to take a look at how South Korean firms are responding to this development with their latest technology. As countries around the world seek ways to reduce their carbon footprint, electric vehicle batteries have emerged as an up-and-coming industry. To help domestic firms maintain traction in this market, the South Korean government pledged to foster research and development for batteries this year.
We will invest more than 500 billion Korean won in R&D over the next 5 years for the development of next-generation batteries, low-end batteries, and eco-friendly technologies.
Last year, the country's battery exports amounted to just under $10 billion. And as a market leader, South Korea showcases the newest battery trends every year. This year's Interbattery and EV Trend Korea exhibitions are hosting the largest number of companies to date as the market continues to grow. Nearly 600 firms from both home and abroad were in attendance, including the commonly dubbed K-Trio, LG Energy Solution, Samsung SDI and SK On. According to SNE research, their combined market share came to just over 20% in January this year, with all three recording year-on-year growth. But with Chinese battery firms beginning to take bigger portions of the pie, South Korean companies are upping their game. LG Energy Solution showcased mid-nickel NCM batteries that have a reduced proportion of nickel.
Nickel is a rare resource, so reducing the amount of nickel that's used helps to lower costs.
Other than lowering costs to match their cheaper counterparts, firms are also diversifying their portfolios. Samsung SDI plans to start mass production of their all-solid battery, which boasts a longer lifespan and endurance in 2027, leading to safer EVs with longer running times. SK On has jumped into the lithium iron phosphate battery market, with LFP batteries having a high power density that makes them ideal for EVs.
LFP batteries don't typically perform as well in low temperatures, but our new Winter Pro LFP battery has improved on those weaknesses.
Despite lagging global EV sales, companies are finding ways to keep the momentum going. With commercialization of these advanced technologies yet to hit the market, there's still much room for growth.
What an interesting lineup. And Hae-ryun, but other than research and development of new tech, what else can be done to foster the EV battery market?
Well, Jong-min, a key reason that's often cited for the lagging EV market is the lack of charging infrastructure. But on Wednesday, the South Korean government unfolded its plans to install thousands of new EV charging ports, so 450,000 of them will be available by the end of this year. Another issue is the strict regulations of the Inflation Reduction Act, which rules out battery components manufactured or assembled by an FEOC such as China. But 84% of lithium hydroxide used in making South Korean batteries is imported from China, as are other key minerals needed in its production. There's a real need for firms to diversify their supply chains.
And other than EV sales, are there any other factors that could affect the battery market in the days to come?
So aside from the Inflation Reduction Act in the States, the EU has also implemented battery regulations starting in mid-February. But procedural aspects mean that companies are likely to feel the effects kicking in starting next year, as the EU establishes requirements for sustainability, safety and labeling of batteries, as well as end-of-life management. The K-Trio have a market in Europe, so they're affected to next year.
All right, thanks for your report today, Hae-ryun.
Thank you for having me, Jong-min.
In the U.S., prospects of interest rate cuts remain in place, but their timing remains unclear. Now, this is based on the latest remarks by the head of Federal Reserve, Chair Powell, and our Shin Se-byuk covers his cautious outlook.
U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has indicated potential interest rate cuts in 2024. Testifying before Congress on Wednesday, Powell reaffirmed plans to cut interest rates within the year, though he did not pin down an exact timeline.
If the economy evolves broadly as expected, it will likely be appropriate to begin dialing back policy restraint at some point this year.
Despite this, Powell adopted a cautious approach regarding rate reductions, emphasizing that the 2% inflation target has not yet been met.
But the economic outlook is uncertain, and ongoing progress toward our 2% objective for inflation is not assured.
The Fed chair also noted that the U.S. economy is showing no sign of an imminent recession, saying that restoring price stability and achieving maximum employment must come before lowering interest rates. Powell's remarks at the December 2023 FOMC meeting, which were made public in January, suggested an end to the aggressive rate hike policy the U.S. has been following. At that time, FOMC officials anticipated 3 rate cuts, each by a 0.25 percentage point by the end of 2024, while the actual policy path would depend on how the economy evolves. Following Powell's testimony, U.S. stocks closed higher on Wednesday, breaking a 2-day losing streak on Wall Street. The Dow Jones Industrial Average saw a 0.2% rise. The broader S&P 500 index advanced by 0.5%, and the Nasdaq Composite climbed by 0.6%. Meanwhile, concerns over a U.S. banking crisis triggered by commercial real estate issues were addressed by Powell as well. This was in the context of shares in holding bank New York Community Bancorp dropping nearly 40% on Wednesday, following news that the bank had downgraded to below investment grade due to bad commercial real estate loans and was attempting to secure new funding. Powell acknowledged this as a significant challenge, but reassured that it was manageable and unlikely to impact the wider economy significantly. 신세벽, Arirang News.
In Europe, the Digital Markets Act goes into effect this week as part of efforts to address the rampant dominance of tech giants online. Park Gon-woo explains.
The Digital Markets Act, regulating tech giants from abusing their market-dominating power, starts its full application in all 27 European Union nations from Thursday local time. On the first day, the European Commission will be receiving reports from the 6 regulated companies designated as gatekeepers on what measures they have taken to comply with the law. Those 6 gatekeepers are Amazon, Apple, Google parent Alphabet, Meta, Microsoft, and TikTok owner ByteDance. Based on the reports, companies will be evaluated on whether they are following the law, and if they are considered to be obeying it insufficiently, an investigation will be launched immediately. Under the law, which aims to make the digital market fairer and more contestable, the EU has set obligations on 22 services the gatekeepers operate, which include operating systems, social media, search engines, app stores, and online advertisements. One of the biggest changes under the law is the requirement for gatekeepers to allow third parties to interoperate with their own services. For example, iPhone users in the EU will be able to download applications from outside Apple's App Store. The DMA also bans companies from giving preferences to their own services. In this case, the Google Flights button that appears at the top of search results will now be removed when users search for plane tickets on Google. Companies violating obligations could face hefty fines, up to a maximum of 20% of their overall annual turnover earned globally for repeated infringements. Pundits forecast that the EU's Digital Markets Act could possibly become the standard for regulating big tech companies in other countries in the near future. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, at least 3 crew members of a cargo ship passing through the Gulf of Aden have been killed by Houthi rebels, marking the first civilian death since the group began attacking ships in the Red Sea over the war in Gaza. Jong-un has the latest.
According to U.S. Central Command on Wednesday, a Houthi missile attack has killed at least 3 crew members on a Red Sea merchant ship. This marks the first fatalities reported since the Iran-aligned Yemeni group began strikes against shipping in one of the world's busiest trade lanes in support of the Palestinians. CENTCOM said the Houthi strike also injured at least 4 crew members and caused significant damage to the ship. The Houthis claimed responsibility for the attack, which U.S. officials say was their 5th in the past 2 days. A Houthi spokesman said the targeting operation came as the ship's crew rejected warning messages from Yemeni naval forces. The attack set the Greek-owned Barbados flagship True Confidence ablaze around 50 nautical miles, or approximately 93 kilometers off the coast of Yemen's port of Aden. The Greek operators said no information was available about the status of the 20 crew and 3 armed guards who were forced to abandon ship, including 15 Filipinos, 4 Vietnamese, 2 Sri Lankans, an Indian, and a Nepali national. However, the Philippine Department of Migrant Workers on Thursday announced the death of 2 of its nationals and said 2 other Filipino crewmen were severely injured in the attack. Houthi rebels have been attacking commercial ships passing through the Red Sea since November last year in what they say is retaliation for Israel's war in Gaza. The Houthi attacks have disrupted global shipping, forcing shipping companies to take longer and more expensive routes around southern Africa. While the militia has said it would attack vessels with links to the United Kingdom, the United States, and Israel, shipping industry sources say all ships could be at risk. Despite international condemnation and a call to end hostilities in the Red Sea, the Houthis said they won't stop until the aggression is stopped and the siege on the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip is lifted. Jong-un, Arirang News.
Over in Syria, at least 18 people were killed in a suspected Islamic State attack in a desert area on Wednesday, with IS showing signs of a resurgence amid the instability in the Middle East. IS reportedly opened fire at a group of truffle hunters in the desert area of an eastern province that borders Iraq. Some of those killed were reportedly members of the pro-government National Defense Forces who were supervising the truffle hunting. Truffle hunters tend to work in large groups in remote areas, which makes them easy targets for IS to kidnap and be used for ransom money.
It's got colder today with cold winds blowing even during the daytime. There's scattered snow and rain in the central region, including the Seoul metropolitan area and the Gyeongsang-do provinces. Please be careful on slippery roads on your way home from work. In the mountainous areas of Gangwon-do province, where a lot of snow has already piled up to 5 centimeters of more snow will fall by tonight. In other inland areas, there is expected to be 1 to 5 millimeters of rain and 1 to 3 centimeters of snow. This rain and snow will mostly die down tonight, and clear skies will be back again tomorrow. However, as the temperatures drop quickly overnight, more spring frost will come around tomorrow morning. Tomorrow's Seoul, Daejeon, and Gyeongju will start off at -1, Daegu and Gwangju 0 degrees. It will be windy all over the country in the middle of the day tomorrow. Daily highs will move up to 6 in Seoul, Daegu and Gyeongju 10 degrees Celsius. On Saturday, the morning temperature in Seoul will drop to -3 degrees. The cold snap will gradually ease from Sunday afternoon. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.